All right, as you all log on, welcome to this week's bi-weekly podcast here at Gentian. I just wanted to welcome you here today and really acknowledge some of the uncertainty that's going on in the markets. Today, though, we're going to have a lot of different things we'll talk about. We'll bring each section here. We'll have a little bit longer format. So beyond the 30 minutes, we'll probably proceed this time because I've got about 14 dad jokes lined up as well, just to kind of ease the tension that's out there. I know there's a lot going on. I really don't have that many. I've got 0. That was a dad joke, so that was 1. But at any rate, I wanted to just touch base with you because there's a lot going on. I've been through quite a few different programs in the last week or 2 or 3, and I'll share some of the outcome of those as well. So some of it's going to be on being a better human. A lot of the planning, diversification, trajectory, things we should be paying attention to, tax planning will be covered by the guys. And actually then also we're going to wrap up the most important part with Angie at the end and what to pay attention to with all the stuff going on just here at Gentian. So with that today, I want to start something called Lifeboat Drills. You're wondering, what is a lifeboat drill? Things are really good. Markets have reached all-time highs. What you think about here, if you look at markets and look at their correlation. So just kind of take a moment and sit back and reflect. You've got your own personal opinion, completely valid about whatever you're feeling right now. Whatever opinion you have out there is completely valid as well. I will not argue that. I will not try to thwart that in any form whatsoever. What I look at, though, is despite whatever you're feeling, look at what is. What is right now, markets at all-time highs, shrugging off a lot of world politics, shrugging off a lot of world, let's call it entropy. Entropy is things moving toward disorder, right? Markets are pushing that aside and looking at something we have called AI. I think as many of you have remembered, there's really a seminal book, called An Empire of Wealth by John Steele Gordon. And in that book, I've talked a lot of times about how we're an economic engine first. America was based and founded on being an economic engine first. Listen to this, loosely knit by politics. Hear that again? Loosely knit by politics. If you look at the day-to-day function of us as human beings as well, we think that politics are so important because the news media brings it in and it feeds us, it tells us that. But what's very important for us to take a look at is on our daily life, how is it affecting us? Sure, prices are up for eggs. Those are more expensive. I actually, the other day, went to a restaurant and had an egg surcharge of 30 cents. It's kind of funny, kind of amusing. And then I thought, wow, that's actually pretty significant as you go along to all the eggs. But really coming back to what is S&P yesterday hit an all-time high. Many companies are forging into new territory based on this new crazy technology. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of it yet. It's called the interweb. No, I'm sorry. That was a few years ago. It's called artificial intelligence. So as you look at some of these things, as we're having these Gutenberg moments all occurring at once, what's driving the markets? It's certainly not the thought of what's happening out there in whatever realm the news is bringing us in. It's actually uncertainty. Markets tend to do things like climb walls of worry. There's really no future facts. You can't tell what's going to happen. Is it going to be a huge opportunity? Is market going to go up for another 2 days, 2 months, 2 years, 10 years? We don't know. But what we do know is we're prepared for it. What a lifeboat drill is when things are really, really good, for us to pull back for a moment, recognize what's going on. Does it look like anything we've done in the past? Valuations of stocks are fairly high now in comparison to history, right? So maybe our future expectations aren't as high for the next 10 years. We still don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 or 3. We might get the better portion of our next 10-year return in the next 2. We don't know that. Being prepared for anything, the lifeboat drill is being able in your overall portfolio and your planning to be prepared come what may. This is the come what may time. Things are coming out of left field, reports are coming out of all over, but the stability of your plan remains intact. The vehicles that we have for funding your plan remain intact. If anything was to change in that, that'd be a conversation, discussion we would have. So as I introduce this idea of a lifeboat drill, you've heard it before. We'll talk about corrections when they happen. We don't know when they will happen, but we know that they will. This resets a base. It's like we get a huge rainstorm, we get a lot of water in the spring, which sets out for a great summer and flowers, right? You need something oftentimes to reset a market. We don't know what it'll be or when it'll be, but it will be. I want to make sure you understand that. Many of you have just received from the desk of Chris Doty as well. So if you haven't had a chance to read that, it's some of our seminal statements and beliefs in how we manage money and portfolios and how we look at the economy. So you're probably just receiving that as well. Remember, the principles are faith, patience, and discipline. Those are our three principles. The three practices we use are asset allocation, diversification, and rebalance. We're going to talk about those today as well. So with that, I want to welcome you to this, let's call it our podcast today, but it's a little bit longer format, if you will. We wanted to at least introduce you to the Lifeboat Drills and be prepared. I'm not telling you for today, tomorrow, the next month, but be prepared. These things will happen. We know they will happen. I want to make sure that you know they'll happen. It'll make you a better investor, and it's necessary for us to have a good long-term return and for your plan to be fulfilled. So with that's my opening. I didn't go to gratitude right away. I wanted to address that because there's a lot of turmoil going on. But coming back to being grateful, I got to spend 17 hours in the car with my daughter, Samantha, and we spent 2 hours listening to a person named Ray Dalio talking about economics and how it affects the entire landscape of the world, of course, which is what every 16-year-old daughter wants to talk with her dad about for 2 hours in a car. We just had an absolutely wonderful time. I got to spend 2 days with some of the leaders of Mequon Thiensville, kind of planning out its future as well. My team, we just had some wonderful one-on-ones, and I've really gotten to know them better, what they're looking for. My wife as well had 6 or 7 days for some fun with her friends. So for me, I've got a lot to be grateful for right now, but most importantly, too, on Thursday, Friday, or Friday, Saturday, that's Valentine's Day and Saturday, we went to a marriage retreat, and it was absolutely wonderful. Wonderful marriage retreat at our church, which I'll be bringing some of the subject up here as we go along. But with that, how about, let's start with gratitude. Who wants to jump in? Let's go with, how about Zach? What are you grateful for?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Always a lot to be grateful for as well. My son is going to be 2 months old on Saturday, so that's the biggest gratitude. And also, he had a personal record for sleep last night and slept for 7 hours. So it was absolutely amazing to be a part of that. But most specifically, this morning, I had my morning shift with him around 4 a.m. And this was pretty much the smile that I received this morning. So it was about the biggest dopamine hit I could ever imagine. So that's my my gratitude for today.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. Wonderful, wonderful. Great to see Wes's smiley face as well. Very, very cool. How about let's go with Ken?
Thank you, Chris. Great to be here with you all as usual. I am grateful for good books. I'm reading a book called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And it's a really good book. It's on parenting and different strategies on how to relate with them, respond to them. And so far, it's actually been pretty good for me because parenting, I found out, is very difficult. So Zach, you're kind of embarking on this journey as it sounds. And so it's a really good book. I recommend it to people. It's changed the way that I approach my kids and talk with my kids. And it's been so far so good. So just grateful for that book and to help us along the parenting journey.
Thank you, Ken. How about let's go with Mr. Mike Mann?
Thanks, Chris. People speaking on being parents, but for me, I'm grateful for my dad. The other day, my flight got delayed 4 hours, and I didn't land in Milwaukee until 1 a.m. And he stayed up and picked me up. So grateful for him sticking in there. Yeah, I had a pretty fun conversation at 2 a.m. on the drive back home. So it was nice to do that. And honestly, just being able to spend this extra time with him, my parents being in their mid-60s, things like that. To become friends with your parents is one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in my life. So yeah, really enjoy them.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Mr. Birschbach, how about yourself?
Thank you, Chris. I'm grateful this morning just for keeping things really simple. Over the weekend, I came across an interview with Tom Brady, who many would regard as the greatest quarterback of all time. I'm talking about how he was so successful. It was like a 2-minute clip. I was expecting to hear something super profound and interesting, but he just talked about trusting his preparation and routine, showing up every day with a certain mindset, and really just keeping things simple. And it's a lot of discussions that we have here as a team. So just knowing that we're on the right path and seeing somebody who's ultra successful in what they do, it's a little bit reassuring. Thank you, Chris.
Outstanding. How about let's go to Ben? How about yourself, Ben?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'm grateful for my wife. She surprised me over the weekend with building me a desk and chair that I can use to get work done and study at. That has my own space, and as she said, will not clutter the pretty areas of the apartment. So that's what I'm grateful for.
I like that. That's a really kind way of saying it, right? That's awesome. How about Ashley?
Thank you, Chris. Much like you, I had some one-on-one time with my boys this last weekend while Alex was away traveling for work. And I just enjoy those moments so much. They talk about different things, they share different things with me than they would if both of us are around. So I just enjoy that quality time with my kids at their ages. So thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you as well. And how about, let's go to Angie. How about yourself?
Thanks, Chris. Believe it or not, I am thankful for the winter weather and snow. I think it's so pretty. It makes us appreciate the warmer weather a little bit more. Big fan of the change of season. So just grateful that winter finally kicked in a little bit as we head into the home stretch to spring.
That's awesome. Awesome. So thank you very much. Starting today, we can get right into it, but a lot of what I talked about here is I've looked at what's happening with AI. So I put this in here. I said, what should I tell my clients about market corrections in turbulent times? I actually put it into AI. And you know what it said? This is what it says almost to a T. 1, acknowledge the uncertainty. Market fluctuations and corrections are a natural part of investing. While they can feel unsettling, they are not uncommon and have historically been followed by periods of recovery and growth. This is literally coming from it. Provide historical perspective. So I'm going to espouse now for the next 20 minutes on historical perspective. I'm just kidding. But over the past century, the market has experienced numerous corrections and bear markets. Each time it has rebounded and continued its long-term upward trend. Short-term volatility is a price we pay for long-term growth. Couldn't have said it better myself. If you hear some of the words, I may have borrowed from this. I'm just kidding. It's borrowing from me. But it reinforce your investment strategy. So your investment strategy is strong. It's built for times like these. Another is highlight the dangers of emotional investing. So a lot of people, when they feel angst, they want to do something about it because that's something that happens in the amygdala. So we've got this little thing in the back of it's a very, very strong piece, but it's an amygdala and it's a fight or flight. We feel most in control when we do something about something. So when it becomes visceral, when it gets beyond the reasonable prefrontal cortex, we start to want to do things and take action. Emotional investing is often very wrong. If you want to know some examples, I can share those offline with you. I've got some clients who've done some things against my will. I can tell you what the results were. They haven't historically been good. Identifying the opportunities. So the market downturns present opportunities, which we're going to talk about here for many different things, such as Roth conversions and opportunities for actually rebalance as well are massive. So I want to talk about those. And then really, it says reassure and offer support. I want to reassure you today, and I'm offering support. This is what artificial intelligence does. It's interesting. So you'll see a lot of people beginning to use it as frameworks. What we use it for here is simply as a tool to set a framework, but we put the personal in it. So it's an interesting framework to gather information, to gather data so that we can make better decisions. It's becoming an integral part of any practice and anything that I'd say is really, really I guess let's call it anything that takes a lot of research. It's really become an integral part of some of what I just did as well with the city. I took 4 sheets that had all sorts of responses on it. I took 4 pictures of them, fed them into artificial intelligence, said, please summarize these in 3 points. Of the 50 leaders there was only one who did that and one who had the answers for it in about 42 seconds. All other 49 were amazed. These are leaders of your community, by the way. And there was only one out of all of us that had this idea and came up with these, and they were amazed by it. So if you want to amaze your friends, use artificial intelligence, even if it's in a simple form. With that, as I go forward, let's start with Mike's Minute. Mike, what's going on with you? What should we be paying attention to today? I know you got some wonderful things. It might be a little longer than Mike's Minute, so I'm going to call it Mike's Minutes.
Minutes. All right. Hey, I'll take it. Yeah, I really enjoyed the way that you introed into a couple different things, especially talking about some of the all-time highs that are out there. And some of the questions that we get at different points in time are, oh, the market's at an all-time high. We talk a lot about corrections and the ability that, and you'll hear a little bit more about this a little bit later, but a correction actually being an opportunity to be a new investor, to put more money to work because of the upside that could exist in difficult markets. I mean, that's where some of the best trading days actually occur. But what about the opposite set of the spectrum? What about when we're at all-time highs? Is that a good time to be putting money to work? Well, to put it in the most layman's terms possible, the best time to be an investor is when you have money and have the ability to do so. The best time to take money out of the market is when you need it. But to go a little bit deeper into this idea and this concept, what happens when we trade at all-time highs? So I want to share a slide that I found, and we go into all of these different details. This one comes to you from JP Morgan specifically. And you'll see as I bring this up here that actually we kind of scour and go through what is 71 pages worth of JP Morgan information that comes out on a quarterly basis. And then even beyond that, they have a whole lot of great resources out there. But this chart really struck me, and it really speaks to some of the things that Chris was talking about. Why is it still good to be an investor at all-time highs? Well, one stat that I want to take, and I'm just going to highlight a couple specific things on here, is that the percentage of days that the S&P 500 has closed end of day at a brand new all-time high, and that's since 1950. In fact, 6.7% of all trading days, the S&P 500 closed at a new all-time high. That's astounding. And that number changes a little bit over time, right? We look at averages and things like that. There's a couple points in here where there's not quite as many, but still, when we look at a percentage and an average, it's a lot higher than people would expect. In fact, we had over 50 new all-time highs last year. So what does that mean? It means that the market likes to have momentum. It likes to carry onward. Another stat that I want to point out here that would be confusing from safe level, or from face level, but I'm going to break it down a little bit more for you. The percentage of all-time highs that act as a market floor. What this 31.1% means is that 31.1% of those all-time highs, the market never went lower than 5% from that all-time high. What does that mean? That means that it carried on upward. So the idea of being an investor when there's an all-time high, yes, we love putting the money to work when we know that that it's down. But generally speaking, in comparison to any trading day that you could just randomly throw a dart at the board and invest in, typically all-time highs, when you're a long-term investor, is a great time to put money to work. So I just want to bring these stats up. I feel like we say it a lot. We come with these things that, yes, even though the market is at a high, even though valuations might feel a little bit higher than they were before, because I mean, that's kind of the definition of when something's traded at an all-time high. It's still a great time to put money to work. It's a great time to be an investor. So don't shy away from it, because there's still opportunity. There's still momentum that could be captured. And so that's a tendency there. So you can't really argue with stats. But that's what I have for you today, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it. You know, I hear that you can't argue with facts. Some people do when they try, and it's very funny to watch. It's an interesting idea. So, oh, no, the 2 + 2 is not 4. Ask an economist, 2 + 2 equals what? They'll say, what do you want it to equal? We always used to talk about that one. Thank you. I appreciate that as well. Let's go over to, let's go to Zach's facts. What's going on, Zach?
Thank you, Chris. I enjoyed the economist one, so thank you for that. I also, it reminds me of a quick joke that is, why did God create economists? As to make meteorologists look good. So, but we'll go through our normal markets, where they're at for the year, have some exciting news in regard to those that we haven't been able to say for about 3 years. And then really just going into a little bit more detail on rebalancing and asset allocation, like both Chris and Mike mentioned. But for the markets for the year, the Dow Jones is up 4.7. The S&P 500 is up 4.2. The NASDAQ, which is 50% weighted towards technology, is 3.8. The Russell 2000, which generally represents those smaller size companies, the small and mid-size companies, is 2.7. And then here's where the kind of the exciting numbers came in, is that the international is right around 7% positive on the year, and emerging markets is almost 6. So we haven't been able to say that for several years. Those were two asset classes that have lagged for quite some time. So it leads right into the benefits of rebalancing and asset allocation just in general. And in analogy of our lifeboat, the rebalancing and the asset allocation is really our little floaties on that boat. It helps us keep us afloat and keep us on path towards our financial plan. And two really nice quotes that I enjoyed was, successful investing is about managing risk, not avoiding it. And that's from Benjamin Graham, who's the author of The Intelligent Investor and widely regarded as the teacher of Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors ever. And then the last one, just because Chris tends to have a green thumb in the summertime once in a while, is that rebalancing is like tending a garden. It keeps your portfolio healthy by pruning excess and planting where needed. So just to go into a little bit more detail, it's one of my favorite charts that we go through every year. I'll just give it a second to pull up for each of you guys. This we often call our jelly bean chart, just because of all the different pretty little colors. But it really represents all the different asset classes that we can really invest in. You have large cap growth, large cap value, mid cap growth, mid cap value, small cap, international, real estate investment trusts, bonds, global bonds, commodities, and cash. This goes back from 2024 all the way back to 2005. And as you can see, these different asset classes really fluctuate. In some years, the best performing asset class becomes the worst soon after, right? We see that with commodities, we see that with real estate investment trusts, small cap growth. And then this gray box is a diversified portfolio. So instead of the wild swings from top to bottom, potentially from the best performing asset class to the worst, a diversified portfolio has more of that smoothing out effect and reduces risk in our portfolio. One thing that I really wanted to look at here, because 2024 to 2015, you look at the top of the chart, large cap growth has really carried the way, and really due to the Magnificent Seven and the emergence of those really since 2015. But one thing I wanted to look at when it comes to rebalancing is that the 2019, 2020, unbelievably excessive returns compared to history, 36%, 38%, 27 in 2021. Oftentimes what a mistake investors or even some advisors in our industry make is, oh my gosh, large cap growth is going to continue on this path moving forward. That's the place where we got to shift our money towards. We're in a major growth phase right now. Look what happened that next year. In 2022, the worst performing asset class was right around 30% down. That was large cap growth. And if we would have shifted there or didn't rebalance and allowed our portfolio, our strategy to get out of balance, instead of maybe temporarily being down 13% in a diversified portfolio, we could have been around 20, which is very hard to recover from historically. Granted, the last 2 years did, but that's not the case over history as well. You could be out of favor for 5 or 10 or potentially even 15 years. And one thing that Mike and Ryan on our team really good at reminding us of is that a lot of times now, if you're looking at the comparison of mutual funds or even index, the 15-year return now doesn't include 2008 and 2009. So that's where the history perspective that we lean on from Chris and just industry leaders in general is trying to look back 20, 30 years to look at what a normal market cycle in retirement would look like. But really wanted to share this with you. And with that, Chris, I'll pass that back to you.
Thank you very much, Zach. I appreciate that. You talked about how your little one's just had his best sleep. It's interesting. A lot of people really complain about having trouble sleeping. It's very easy for me. I can sleep with my eyes closed. It's just super simple. So as we go forward, I think that's something I found that's really easy to do. Maybe you could try it. I think a couple of things that Zach had said as well. I think Peter Lynch said that there's been more money lost anticipating corrections than there are in corrections themselves. It's a huge line we've looked at as well. And I think I'm gonna summarize what Zach said very simply. Buy low, sell high. Need I say more? The discipline of rebalance forces us to do it. So thank you, Zach. I really appreciate that. And I love the analogies as well. When you're looking in that chart, I think it's fun to see the jelly bean changes as well. I've looked at that forever. So with that, let's go over to Ken's corner. Ken, what's going on the planning side of the equation we should be taking a look at here today? Tell me something about tax and planning.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it very much. And let's talk about a nasty little 3-letter word that some of you are thinking, tax. Talk about tax today. We are at tax time. And this is where we are waiting for some of our tax documents to come out. So as you can see here on your screen here, I have some very important dates. January 31, this is where you're going to be looking for your IRAs, the 1099Rs that you can see there, or the 5498s. This is January 31. Also, 529 plans. If we took a qualified share or qualified distribution from a 529 plan, it's called a 1099Q, and you should already have those. So if you get them electronically, check some emails, check client access. If you get them in paper form, you should have received those already. If you don't have those, give us a call. We can certainly guide you and get that document that you need to finish up your taxes. The other dates that you see here are February 15th, February 28th, or March 15th. These are very important dates for basically non-IRA accounts. These are called 1099s. And this is if you have a trust account, a personal account. Sometimes they're labeled as TODs, sometimes joint with rights or survivorship you'll see on your statements. These are the ones you're looking for when it comes to the 1099s. And there's different phases they come out based on the complexity of the investment and income reconciliation by the mutual fund companies or whatever investments are trying to reconcile income basically with Raymond James. So February 15th, 28th, March 15th. Again, if you get them electronically, you can go online, you'll see them. Sometimes they say delayed, and then you know it's the next date, which would probably be February 28th you're looking at. If it's delayed again because Raymond James is making sure that this is correct for you, then March 15th is going to be another date to be looking for. So I know this is usually the last document you're looking for, but Raymond James tries to do a really nice job to make sure we don't have to amend the taxes when they're already done, because that's kind of a pain in the butt. So hang with us, and those are the dates to be looking for. Some of the opportunities that you have when it comes to tax planning strategies, I listed the top 8 here that we hear quite a bit about. There's probably 100 or so, maybe even 200 that we could list here, but these are the top 8 that clients like to talk to us about. And so these are the ones that we want to talk about. When you finish your taxes and you come in for a meeting, please bring along a copy of your taxes for this year. It tells us a lot of what's going on in your world. I think we already have a pretty decent handle, but again, we can always learn something new or find a new opportunity for you that really could benefit you from a tax standpoint. Some of you do TurboTax. There's new questions that pop up every single year with that. So we'll be able to help you through some of that. But again, if you have a tax accountant, we really want to lean on them to get us the answers that we're looking for. When it comes to strategies, here are the top 8, like I mentioned. Roth conversion planning. Chris mentioned this before. I think Zach did as well. This is wonderful. This is where you move money from a traditional IRA to a Roth IRA. Think of it as a spring. If you look at my finger here, it's compressed during a market correction when things are temporarily going down. You slide that over to the Roth IRA, and all of a sudden when the spring releases, you get those gains in that recovery back in the Roth IRA, which those happen to be tax-free after a certain withholding period if we have to satisfy that. We have a handful of clients that actually have done this on a spreadsheet. We track it here as well. Clients do as well. And it's amazing to see how much recovery and growth happen inside of the Roth IRA after a market correction when doing a Roth conversion. So there's a handful of them. If you ever wanted to learn more about them, they're really quite amazing. We'll help you through those as well. Tax loss harvesting, I'm not going to go every line item here, but this is where you have non-IRA accounts. And if an investment A is temporarily at a loss, we can actually sell that, realize the loss, and buy investment B right in place of it right away. That's called tax loss harvesting. Knowing if you take the standard deduction or itemizing is also a really big part of the planning that we can help you with. Is if we know what that is, that's why we want to see your taxes. Some of you already know what you have for the standard deduction or if you're itemizing, but this is where different strategies come into place. So we can layer that on top of what you're already doing or help you get to a point maybe where if you're taking the standard deduction, maybe we can get you to a point where you can actually itemize a little bit more as well. So health savings account, these are really, really wonderful accounts. Mike mentioned this too, buy low. Chris mentioned it as well, buy lower. Lean into a correction. If we have extra cash, this is a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of some of the great companies that might be on sale. This is a wonderful time. Qualified charitable donations, wonderful idea to do from your IRA. We will talk to you about those. Donor advised funds are more popular right now. Appreciated investments as well. The big one on the bottom here is family wealth planning. This is a big one. Chris talks about this one quite a bit. This is where if we can get the family involved or know more about the family as far as where we are today versus where we are tomorrow, taxes do come into play with it. It's also knowing can family members handle the type of money that they may receive? Are they ready for that? Are they emotionally ready for that? Do they have enough knowledge to handle that? These are areas where we can help bring families together and try to keep families together during this time of uneasiness, grief. There's a lot that's going on when we lose loved ones. So these are some strategies I wanted to point out to everybody. Back to you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Ken. I don't know if you know this, but Ken is putting a step-by-step guide together of climbing stairs. So that'll be a good one. We can't wait for that one to come out. Thanks, Ken. I appreciate your help on that. You're doing an awesome job. And
Hey, I'm on step 1 of the process.
are you on step 1? Good. What's the next one? I mean, the tough one is the next one, right?
Step 2. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, keep us posted because I think that's outstanding as well. Hey, for many of you watching, I see that all of you out there as well. For those of you who went to get coffee, you might want to come back real quick. But if you get a chance, you want to ask a question, a really tough question or something in there, please feel free to go to the Q&A. We'll monitor those and take a look at it. We want to make sure this is interactive to you and we're doing what's most important to you, right? So if it's a very tough question and it comes to something I can't answer, I'll bring it to one of the guys here. If it's really easy, I'll just answer it myself. But I want to make sure that you guys understand there's some really, really good things that guys will bring to us as well. And Ken, thank you tremendously for sharing the planning. There's an awful lot going on. And a lot of it really pertains to you individually. But I think the thing that Ken brought up that's very important is family wealth distribution planning, including generations before you and generations after you, are very important because a lot of times how you receive what you receive, taxably, non-taxably, you may have one child who's maybe not as high on the money scale, the other one may be a physician. And planning sometimes is different for both when you leave money to them. Also, when you're inheriting money, there's a real transfer going on, and it's an extremely important portion. You'll start to see more from us, but are you prepared for it? More importantly, are your kids prepared? So we prepared the money really well for the kids, but have we prepared the kids for the money? Big question going on. I thought you brought that up really well, Ken. Thank you. With that, Mr. Birschbach, what's going on with you today? Why don't we have a few ideas? I think, are you going to talk about conversions? What are you going to talk about? What are you going to cover for us today? Cover something cool.
Thank you, Chris. I'm actually going to talk a little bit more about corrections today. But first, I want to define what they actually are. Technically speaking, it's a decline of 10% from a market high. So what does history tell us? Since the end of World War II or 1945, we're seeing a recession, which is even a bigger pullback about every 6 years. Over that time frame, the economy has actually been expanding 87% of the time. The value since the end of 1945 of the S&P 500, which is a good barometer of the 500 largest companies in the United States, has gone from 17 to 6,129 as of yesterday's close. So since about 1995, the S&P has averaged about 10.5%. I'll pull up this chart now to show a few things. In only 3 of this 30-year time horizon we're looking at, we actually saw the market give us a return between 9 and 12%. This bottom chart shows us how many companies of those 500 over those years actually finished the year down. So what you can see is that ultimately the markets are going to give us a return of about 10.5%, but what kind of happens in between is anybody's best guess, which just shows us that asset allocation and diversification, which Mike Mann touched on a little bit earlier, are extremely important, and investing in many of these great companies is really the key. So the next point I want to make is, what can we really do about these corrections? The simple answer is we need to ride them out. If we have cash on the sidelines that we can invest, that's a great time to do that. For the last 40 years, we've seen the market on an average, on an annual basis, a drawback of about 14%. So we see at least on average one correction per year. It's completely normal to see that happen. 2020 is a great example of this. The market was down over 30% in just over 30 days. By the end of the year, the market actually switched and finished positive. It's important to remember that volatility doesn't mean the market is going down a lot in a hurry. That's only true if you're watching a financial news network. Next point I want to make, it's really not possible for anybody to consistently gain an advantage by getting in and out of the markets. It comes with 2 of those decisions, when to get out and when to get back in. I'll share a chart here that I think provides some good perspective. It's called the cost of time, trying to time the market. So this is a 25-year period from 1997 to 2001. If you miss just the best week over that 25-year period, you almost show at the end of that time period have 20% less than just staying invested. If anybody remembers what happened in 2008, which is the week that you missed, there was an election that year. One promise I can make as we continue to move forward is that you have heard and will continue to hear about a guru or an investor who made one great timing decision. The media thrives on these stories. The truth of the matter is if we or anybody else had that crystal ball or the knowledge of when to get in and get out of the markets, we'd have a line out the door to talk to us, but nobody has the answers, not us, not nobody else. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bursbach. I appreciate that as well. Yeah, there is no crystal ball, and I think there's no future facts. It's always important. Things you've heard from us before, but it's pretty amazing. A couple of stats that I just realized have gone on too, as you guys have been talking about markets returns, is if you looked at this, anybody who is not been in this business or investing for 16 years or more has not seen a correction other than the 32% correction in 2022 from COVID that was very short. But take a look at this. Since the bottom of the market, now this is being jaded from the bottom of the market in 2009 for the last 16 years, the S&P's averaged around 15% per year. That is atypical. S&P historically is 10, so it's been above that, right? Now that's following a very tough time. But also the NASDAQ is even higher. It's around 18.66% over that same time. So we've been living in kind of a fairyland of the last 16 years thinking this is normal. I want to make sure what are Lifeboat Drills designed for when we think abnormal becomes normal. So some of the things I just really wanted to talk about is I'm going to hit these several times because I want to, for those of you that want to become great investors, and many of you already are on this call, on this podcast, but I want to make sure that we reiterate those. Okay. I want to bring to you a different perspective as well from Mr. Ben. So Ben Reinecke comes to us from a great company, a big company. I can't really mention names of it, but it's in the city of West Bend. There's an insurance company there. So he comes to us with great experience from there. And he's going to share a few ideas with us today, right, Ben?
That's right, Chris. Thanks. Yes, I did work for a reputable insurance company, happened to be located in that vicinity. Not to name names, not to name names. So no, I just wanted to touch base, share a couple insurance thoughts with you guys, because we talk about, as you've heard on the podcast so far today, of lifeboat drills, trying to understand protecting yourself. Part of that is also your insurance, protecting your assets. And so I'm going to focus on, there's all types of insurance, but today is going to be focused on the property casualty, usually your home and auto insurance focusing on. The point of your insurance, though, it's risk management. It's transferring that risk from you guys to someone else for that catastrophic thing. So it's protecting you in that worst case scenario of that lifeboat when you need that. So first thing that I want to touch on is things that you guys can do right now in your own home to help you guys out with, hey, what if the worst case scenario happens? Someone breaks into your home or a fire. What you can do is, most of us, I'm taking a guess, has one of these in their pockets, I'm guessing. Take one of these out. Go take some time, videotape the rooms in your home. See what's in there, especially some high value items like your TVs, laptops, anything of that sort. Take a photo, take the serial number. You can upload it to a vault here at Gentian, go onto your client access. You can save it there. So in case that worst case scenario happens where that phone gets destroyed or whatever, you have that access to that video. You can share with the insurance companies and be, hey, this is what I had in my home, and proving that this is the serial numbers of what I had lost. So that's just a helpful little tips and trick that make hopefully that process a little smoother for you and probably a really tough time for you and your family. Now, I want to share a couple little quick topics or phrases that you might see when it comes to your insurance policies. Everyone's going to be a little different, but these are some key ones that you might want to keep a lookout for so you understand what it means. So when you can talk with your agent, you know what they're referencing. So these are the three terms I'm going to talk about today with you guys is replacement costs, actual cash value, and coinsurance. How do these all tie together? So every policy is going to be a little bit different. And when it comes to replacement costs or actual cash value, replacement cost is truly, hey, what's it going to take to truly replace this item, a roof, your car, whatever it might be, what's it actually cost? actual cash value, that's actually going to take that replacement cost and depreciate it, take off a bunch of the value because there's wear and tear on that thing. The roof been there for 10 years. It's not the same value was when you initially put it in. So understanding what your value is, what you're paying for your insurance premiums is kind of a key to make sure you're not caught with a little surprise at when, again, your worst day possible. Now, I bring up that word co-insurance, kind of a weird thing. Wait, aren't we talking insurance already? What's this co-insurance talking about? So co-insurance is that little piece. You can kind of almost think of it as, I guess I'll come back to that. Well, when it comes to replacement cost, insurance carriers want to make sure that you're insuring to the proper value, that you're not just saying your home is worth $1 million and it's really worth $2 million, but you insured it for $1 million. Uh-oh, what happens? That's that co-insurance where you might get hit with a little bit of a penalty that you're not insured it properly. Chris talked about it earlier about how price of eggs surcharging. If you don't think eggs are gone up, there's probably a few other things in your life that's gone up too, like your home values. So making sure that your replacement cost is a proper insurance value so you don't get hit one of those nasty co-insurance penalties is a key thing. And then that was all I had for insurance wise. Chris, back to you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate that. I think there was an example of a restaurant right here in our town that burned down, and they had a insurance policy on it, but they insured it for what it was when they bought it. Very minimal cost. It was just bought for $150,000. Well, to replace the 100-year-old structure that was on there that was 3 stories was something in the realm of $500,000 or $700,000, right? But their insurance policy was for 150, which they bought originally. So they had to do fundraisers. They couldn't, repay. So I think that's a huge thing of replacement value, because I don't know if you know the price of lumber, tin, work has gone up tremendously from where it was. So that's a really good one. Thank you. I appreciate that as well. So let's go to Ashley's angle. Ashley's activist. How about that? I like that one too. I'm still playing with this one. We're still going to vote on this. There's still more to go with it. But Ashley, give us a couple ideas that you think are important for us as well. I know you've got a good one when it comes to some credits potentially.
Yes, correct, Chris. So our team wanted to bring to your attention a potential savings opportunity in case you are currently an electric vehicle owner or are considering buying or leasing an electric vehicle. So We Energies, if you are a Wisconsin resident, there is a pilot program currently that you can go on to weenergies.com and potentially save some money while you do charge your electric vehicle at your residence. And there's 3 minimum requirements that are needed. Of course, you must own or lease that vehicle, and it must be linked to your Wisconsin residence address. You must also, of course, be a Wisconsin resident and show proof of that. And then along with that, of course, be in good standings with We Energies and have paid your most recent bills and not have any deficiencies in the last 12 months. But if you, again, own one of these vehicles or are considering a vehicle, you can save money during the peak or off hours, which is from midnight if you plug in your vehicle until 8 in the morning. So again, these are off-peak hours in which We Energies will credit your current electric bill with a $400 or 400 kilowatt hours on your bill each month. So in case you're considering it, our team wanted to bring it to your attention, just a little bit of a savings opportunity for you, Wisconsin residents. Also, if you're not a Wisconsin resident, please check out your We Energies or your energy source, and there may be a pilot program or an opportunity for you to save some money there. So back to you, Chris. Thank you.
Absolutely. They're often looking for off-peak. But I've got a question for you, Ashley. Do you know the difference between Elon Musk and a lemur?
I do not.
So Elon made the electric car. A lemur made a gas car. Oh, maybe that's Madagascar. Maybe I mispronounced that, but still. I did want to ask you though, but why was the electric plug so good at its job?
I don't know.
It always stayed grounded,
Mm.
just like we should in our investment plan. I wanted to bring this all back around. So by the way, another member of our team has become a dad. So I get dad jokes delivered to me on a consistent basis. Those 2 were both from Zach. So as he's become a dad, I kid you not, he's probably told me 15 dad jokes in just the past month or more. And they're all great. So just so you know, now we're fed from them from many of us, which is quite funny. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ashley. That's very helpful. That's very helpful. Before I go to Angie for what we should pay attention to, and then I'll wrap up, we'll have a question. Let's take a look at, well, actually, why don't we go, I'll read the question here, and actually, why don't you go ahead, Angie, and give us what we should pay attention to over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, you got it, Chris. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mhm.
All right. So today we actually are hosting our February birthday lunch. We did get a couple cancellations. So if you are on the webinar today and feeling under the weather, or it's just a little too cold for you guys to make it, and you have a birthday in February, please feel free to join us next month in March for that birthday club. We don't want to miss celebrating you during that time. On that note, the next birthday club lunch will be on March. Oh, sorry. I'm going to back up here. Getting a little lost. Sorry, you guys. The next birthday club will be March 12th. So that RSVP is in your bulletin. Again, if you were unable to make it today because you were feeling a little under the weather, feel free to join us in March. Our next bi-weekly webinar is going to be March 5th. And then also, we did unfortunately have to reschedule our Ladies and Gentian Valentine's Tea luncheon due to the snow that we had. So that is now going to be on March 6th. That RSVP is also in the bulletin. Please RSVP for that, ladies. We would love to have lunch with you, and hopefully more of you can join us on that day, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for not having a snowstorm, so everyone's able to make it. And that's all we have, short and sweet, and hope to see all of you guys soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Ange. Thanks for keeping us attuned to what we should be paying attention to here. So one of the questions, just so you know, we do have answer questions live here. The first one is, I'm interested in how to involve our family in establishing some kind of fund for charitable giving that will continue for generations into the future. It's a very personal item. I think in general format, there are things that can be as wide as establishing a charitable foundation, which is very arduous, fairly expensive. And usually I'd say it's best with very large gifts if you're inheriting or giving that. Another is a donor advised fund that can actually be named like, very much like a foundation, but it's an easier way to do that. And that can be done through many ways right here through us, and courtesy of Raymond James. We can also find other custodians for that piece as well. But the key is having some sort of charter yourself that is going to bring the family together and creating it an event around it and letting them know, what does it look like? What does it not look like? What might our family together be? What are the established items that we want to make sure we help solve in the world? So really doing some homework ahead of time is very important. I'm giving that short shrift right now. There's some great answers. We'll talk more about that to the person who typed that in, but I just want to make sure it's a great question. And then we have another a great client who said chat.gpt, Ashley's Flash, Ashley's Hot Take, Ashley's Fast Five. So there's a few more we had. I think I had 10 the other day. We can add these 3 to it as well. Thank you, Nichelle. So we do see those across this as well as we look. I want to thank you guys for your participation in this as well. And as we go through, what I'd like to do is to end our program here with a couple interesting items. So I told you I went to a marriage weekend, but actually Dr. Richard Marks, he's got a doctorate and 3 masters, and also been teaching this for 30 years. And I'd say it's more of a relationship class than anything else, with Christianity and also, but with marriage tied into it very, very interestingly. But I wanted to bring you a few points. I did a whole missive which probably has 30 points on it. And I've always wondered if you guys would be interested. I go to a lot. I learn a lot of stuff, and I'm very fortunate to go to a lot of different items. And I think what I may start doing is putting together summaries of these, at least the important points of them, without opinion, just the important points of their research, and give them to you if you find that helpful. If you guys would find that helpful, go ahead and put in the chat that you think it would be. Just let us know. I'm probably going to do it anyway, but I'd just love to see some reassurance that this is something you would like to see. Let me give you a couple of these items right now. I'll leave out the ones that are just marriage, but this here, the biggest concept was, in any relationship and marriage, there's you, there's me, and then there's us. The most important of these is us. Give you a sample. The doctor talked about, I'm never going to go to a shopping mall. You will never see Dr. Richard Marks in a shopping mall ever. It's just not what I do. If I need to get something, I'll run the store, run out. I will not ever be there. My wife, on the other hand, loves to spend a lot of time shopping at the shopping mall. So occasionally on a weekend, you will see us at the shopping mall. He said, that's just good behavior. So it was an interesting one. So for the benefit of us, he will do that. A couple of things I wanted to give you as well. These are just great ideas. Number 2, do not offer unsolicited advice. Ask. This is huge. A lot of us jump in and go try to solve everybody's problems. So you didn't ask for this, but I'm going to share it with you. And that's not quite it. So instead say, hey, can I share a thought? Is it all right if I make a recommendation? When you're asking, if they say yes, they're open to the idea. Otherwise, you might as well be bouncing off a force field. That was a very one. So do not share unless they agree. I'm also going to give you a key way here to never be disappointed. So listen very closely. If you never want to be disappointed, I'm going to give you a very, very, very strong key to that. Lower your expectations. It's what it is. Very, very good. When you enter things with no expectations, why do you typically get frustrated? Because you have an expectation and somebody doesn't follow it. Lower your expectations, you'll find disappointment is not really around. Very, very interesting one as well. Another one, this is an interesting stat that they found, and I guess I'll ask the question first. What percentage of the problems in marriage do you think are unfixable, or relationships? They did a really long study on this. They found it. Anybody have any guesses?
10%.
Percentage-wise?
10%.
Okay, 10, good. Some people guessed 4 at the program as well. Anyone else? Wow, good guesses. So what I'm going to tell you though, the number is 69%. 69% of problems in marriage are not solvable. So what do you do with them? Or relationships? You say they are what they are. It is what it is. You accept it and you move on. You don't continually try to convince. You don't come back to it because it's going to be a source of frustration and pain. Learn what they are, ask the questions, and then don't push on them. No, my wife does not like to go to the mall. My husband does not want to have a dog. So what they've come out with, one of my friends already said this, well, I'm going to get a dog. I'm going to get a dog no matter what. Yep. As long as my husband dies first. So again, that was one way to solve a problem. Kind of an interesting one. The next one I thought is starting a date with, this is a very good one when you're pretty convinced about something. I'm not saying that I'm right, but I believe I'm right. And then you go on and say what you're going to say. It's giving you some humility, and humility is a big factor in relationships. Very, very important. Another one is going to be never to argue or diminish feelings or opinions. They're valid. So do not deny them. Do not deny feelings or opinions. And like I think we've always heard, denial is not just a river in Egypt. So it's a real thing. The next one I wanted to just touch on too is don't double down on your wrongness. This happens to a lot of us in arguments. So when you argue with somebody and they come out with a point that counteracts what you're talking about, you're probably wrong and you double down on your wrongness. That's very difficult for a relationship of any kind, brothers, sisters, marriage, friends. So be very, very careful about those as well. And the last one, I think this is a pretty important one. We're all dependent on others. Prepare yourself for dependence. We need to depend on other people to make us whole. For instance, did you realize if you close one eye, you lose depth perception? So try to play a sport with one eye closed that has depth perception in it. You'll find it's a massive difference. Like even just hitting a golf ball or a tennis ball. What you'll find is by having 2 eyes, they see different things, but there's a place in the brain that has a right eye, a left eye input, and then both eyes together. Both eyes together is where depth is seen. So you're going to find that 2 different perspectives come together as a whole. That's a great metaphor for what's happening today. There's different perspectives out there in many different things, and together we're stronger for having those different opinions and different views. So there were some great ones in here. There's 25 or 30 that I thought were quite here. This is a great one. As humans together, here's some things that we need: comfort, appreciation, acceptance, affection, attention, encouragement, security, and support. Interesting, when you look at each one of those, it's true. Those are things we need. We may deny it, but those are things we need. So offering those to others is huge. A couple of things that we also need, two major needs, are bonding and survival. Very, very interesting as you run through those as well. So a lot of this goes along with just getting better as a human being. I've been very interested in it for 35 or 36 years. How can I continually get better in relationships, both to offer you, to offer people who are close to me as well? So there's quite a few things I'm often researching, seeing, going to, and taking notes that might be quite beneficial to that. So I call it always getting better as a moniker that I have, AGB. If you ever see it, that's what it is. So becoming a better human and always getting better are two things that are very simple. They're one step at a time. They're not overarching. You don't have to measure yourself all the time, but it's just one of those things that we can always do to get a little bit better as a human in our interactions and relationships with others. Because when you look at human happiness, it actually is often most measured by the quality of your relationships. So what we're talking about today is just offering a few pieces that may help you with that as well, looking at what the markets are. And I think what's really important here is just so everyone is clear, I'm going to put on my glasses. I know you appreciate that one as well. I always like to end on a good note with that. But today was a little longer format than normal on purpose. We wanted to give you a bit more of like our forum, a bit more information as we did as well. We appreciate your interaction. We appreciate your time and attention. We know some of you probably had to run on there. A couple I think did. But we'll do some stronger, longer format podcasts like this as well. We're turning this into a weekly podcast. This is our kind of our foray into that. You'll see when it comes out. I'm sorry, bi-weekly podcast that is, I should say. So we appreciate your extra time today, being on with us the entire time. Hopefully the additional content is beneficial to you as well. Thank you for your introductions to us. Thank you for being with us, your base relationship. Thank you for introducing your children and sharing your children with us, especially when they come in and need a bit of help. It's not the help that you need, but maybe it's just getting started, or maybe they're well on their way and they're beginning to retire themselves, which has been more common. I've been in the business 30 years. Now, seeing you introduce your children to us is one of the most humbling, most gratifying things we've ever seen, because it means that hopefully we've done well by you and you're introducing your best relationships to us. So I want to thank you tremendously for that as well. The team is designed to help them and to help you as well. So with that, from our galactic headquarters here in Mequon, Wisconsin, snowy and -4 degrees, I want to say thank you tremendously. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Stay warm, stay healthy, and most of all, reduce the anxiety, because we have prepared for this. This too shall pass. Thank you. Have a great week.